are there any thoughts on how Senate GOP leadership has been handling this shutdown that we're in currently? Obviously, we've got a new majority leader this year with Senator John Thune replacing McConnell. Any thoughts on how he's handled the shutdown so far, particularly with Democrats not yet negotiating on these healthcare subsidies that is really the epicenter of this stalemate?
Well, Ramsey, you've basically hit the nail on the head. This is Senator Schumer's shutdown. And it is because Democrats are so adamant that they need to give health care to illegals. And that's just not a principle that most of the American people are behind or support. And the fact that Senator Schumer and the Democrats would hold hostage our country and a lot of good hard-working people that are, needing their paychecks over health care for illegals is just an absurd notion. We talk a lot about the fact that President Trump and the Republicans are on the 80% side of issues that Americans care about, whereas the Democrats find themselves on the 20% side. This is another example of that. Fighting for health care for illegals is essentially what the Democrats are doing, and they're holding up our economy. The shutdown is obviously a result of that. And I applaud President Trump and the Republicans and Vice President Vance, who are daily out there beating the drum of why the Democrats are wrong here, why they are wrong for American families. And so I appreciate Republicans being on offense on this and standing up for the American people, because that's, again, by and large what folks back home want. They want leadership in the United States Senate. They want leadership in the White House that is supporting the hardworking men and women of this country, as opposed to illegals trying to get health care.
And what are your views on the Obamacare subsidies expiring that is at the center of the shutdown debate? There are a number of red state senators who say there should be some sort of extension of these enhanced subsidies, maybe not in their current form because it was, they want to see income limits, income caps, or eligibility requirements, more strict so that not as many people are getting these benefits. What is your position on it? If you were in the Senate right now, do you think there should be any sort of extension, or how would you fall on this issue?
Well, I think the important thing here is that you really can't even have these conversations because Democrats aren't willing to come to the table to have that conversation. And again, they are standing firm for illegals and health care for illegals in this country, whereas the Republican Party is a broad party, and I appreciate those members within within the conference that are constantly concerned about the American citizen, the American worker, and how can we improve healthcare outcomes for them. I think it's an important conversation to have, but we can't have it because Democrats won't allow it. And again, I appreciate the folks in the conference that are looking for meaningful ways in which to engage in that conversation, but they can't have a good faith conversation because Democrats have are essentially holding the economy and the government hostage through the shutdown.
Do you have any concerns about the projected rise in premiums if these subsidies expire? There's been some heartburn about that from some Republicans who, have high rates of these subsidy recipients. And, Senator Josh Hawley, for example, is one of the loudest voices on this, that Republicans would be essentially derelict in their duty if they let these sort of premium increases to take effect. So, is there any concern there that if some deal eventually isn't worked out, that folks in your own state could also be impacted by this?
Well, that's exactly why I say it's important for us to be able to even engage in a good faith conversation. And I appreciate Senator Hawley speaking out on this topic. Again, we have a broad spectrum of ideology on the Republican side, but the only ideology on the Democratic side is just opposition to the American people. And we can't even have that good faith conversation related to these subsidies without the Democrats being willing to come to the table. So again, the Republican Party is a party full of ideas and thoughts about how we can uplift or lift up folks that are in challenging circumstances. But the Democrats are just focused on health care for illegals. And I think that's the wrong approach. Again, there are well-meaning and intentioned people in the Republican Party that are trying to solve the issue of how we help folks that have fallen on challenging times and still need medical coverage. but you can't really have that conversation because the Democrats are stonewalling.
So you're not necessarily closing the door to some sort of extension, is what it sounds like.
Well, look, I think it's an important conversation to have, and I think you certainly, look, what I have always gone back to, and this is to a larger extent about, my feelings on the funding that goes to Ukraine. When we had flooding and tornadoes in Kentucky, FEMA was giving pennies on the dollar to folks that were needing to have their homes rebuilt or what have you. And that was a profound time and period for me when it came to, we're able to spend billions of dollars across the pond or overseas, but we're not spending money on our citizens in our own country. And I think that's a similar refrain that Senator Hawley has, is that he wants to see dollars and resources in our communities as opposed to sending them abroad. And I think this healthcare conversation is very much a part of that, is what are we doing to help the American worker? How are we helping people in our communities as opposed to sending a lot of money overseas? And so, again, I appreciate Senator Hawley and others that are focused on this. But the main challenge here is that Democrats just will not come to the table.